we'll expect, hopefully, I guess just Becky's missing.
She said that she would be late.
Okay, great. Okay. And then we have the second Brandolini. Okay, great. Oh, it is recording already. Thank you, Seth. All right, so let's begin our meeting. Today is May 17th, 2021. This is it's 5:37. This is a meeting of the Town of Scituate Charter Review Committee. May I have a call, an acceptance of the agenda motion, please?
So moved, accept the agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded, because we're meeting remote, in accordance with Governor Baker's emergency declaration plan, which is gonna end next month, all meetings of this committee are being recorded and available on Zoom. With that, we will have to have a roll call vote. Me, yes. Michael?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Marla?
Yes.
Andres?
Yes.
And Lincoln?
Yes.
And Ray, sorry, off camera.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. We have much to discuss. We do not have minutes to approve because none of us have finished our minutes. Did I send you, Nicole? No, I didn't send you the video.
No, but I didn't ask for it either, so.
Yeah, I know. I realized that. I'm like, oh, I felt really bad. I'm like,
Don't feel bad. No.
Okay, so we have both the March and the April meeting minutes to do. Luckily, we have the recordings, and which has made us sloppy because we don't have to recreate them. So let me ask you, would somebody like to keep actual minutes for tonight so we don't have to go back and create those for this meeting? Or do you want to just hope that the intern comes on board, which will be the next thing we talk about? All right, we're going to leave the poor intern on this one. I think it's important. It actually, I think, is beneficial to go back to the conversation because we do bat a lot around. Okay, so we will table the minute approvals for now. I will update you on the internship. So the town received 3 applications for internships. We had different categories, one of which was to assist us, and mostly kind of in a quasi-paralegal standpoint. Interestingly, so there were 2 college and 1 high school applicant. Interestingly, they all wanted to do research. But one of the candidates I actually have met before when he was doing his Eagle Scout project years ago. And he indicated he might be interested in all, he was sort of like, he didn't really care. He'd do this or research. So our HR and town administrator are talking to all the candidates this week. So I'm hoping that we find a spot for them all, including bringing Brett. His name's Brett, and I hope that we can slide him over to this because he's a very thoughtful young man, and I think he'd do a great job. So meanwhile, we don't have anybody, but at least we have hope of someone. Unless somebody on this board knows of somebody that is, first-year law or something that's interested.
Can you remind me, are we paying or not paying? No, we're not.
Unfortunately, they're getting paid exactly what we get on this committee.
Got it.
But they can get, we'll fill out forms and do all that if they need credit for school, because a lot of people have to do internships as part of school.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Before we go into our next topics of review on the articles, Michael sent us the responses from council. Do you want to, I looked at them. Do you want to recap?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's happy, if you all are happy for me to recap this tonight, or if you want to spend some time looking through them and then we can go over them next meeting. There's no burning issue we need to resolve tonight. So I know I didn't send them until Friday. So if folks would prefer that, I'm good with that. Or, we can go through them tonight, whatever everyone would like.
Yeah, some of them like reference stuff that we'll get to. So it's good to have in hand. So maybe just we keep it in look at them at your leisure. But Michael, if we get to something and go, oh, let's refer to Cindy's answers. Yep. Some of them I have to say, I'll characterize, I was frustrated because I didn't think we got an answer. But that was, but that's okay. And then others, it was helpful. Bottom line is, I don't think our assumptions were far off base. I think the council pretty much.
Yep, yeah, pretty much clarified a few things. I will say, I know, just a general comment, we had concern about charter language around if the charter controlled over Commonwealth law, state law. And that language is right because, and Andreas, you hit the nail on the head with this, because the legislature approves our charter, that's going to govern regardless, because the legislature wouldn't approve of a charter that allowed a town to do something that's otherwise prohibited by law. So the charter is going to govern over any general or special law so long as a town or a municipality is allowed to do or change those things. So if you see that in there, that's why, and it was helpful for me to have that conversation with her at least. And she's more than happy to work with us throughout this whole process if we have other questions that come up. So
Great. Thank you for touching base with her and doing that homework. One of the homework things that we were supposed to do was to just see if there was any glaring problem with the schedule that we laid out the other day. So we had left it with you guys to let me know. Otherwise, we're just going to keep assuming that the schedule laid out was going to work. And according to the schedule, we are to review Articles 3 and 4 tonight. And I'm looking at my scribbling, and I thought we started on 3, because we don't have minutes. Is that everyone else's recollection? Is that we?
I believe we finished 3. I think.
Yeah, I've got on my notes. It looks like nothing on 4.
Yeah, I think we got through 3 pretty quickly in our last meeting and left 4 to discuss, which was going to be pretty
meaty.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I had a note, Lincoln language for 6.5a. I think you had a homework. We are not there yet. But were you here? I don't even know if you were here.
I was not able to be at the last meeting, so thank you for the reminder on my homework.
Well, that's why we volunteered you to do it. You weren't here. No,
And so what is my homework?
That was your homework. Language for 6.5a.
It was about public meetings for the budget and when changes to the budget were cut off. That process. I think we discussed it 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Right.
And actually, I know I think you did this at some point, Karen, but are you or Seth, if we have them handy, could you maybe, is there like an archive of all the past meetings?
I have
Like
actually
recordings.
I have the
recordings.
recording.
Yeah, because I know I want to review them all prior to, where we're taking votes, because I know so anyway, that's aside from the point, but I know it would be helpful for me, that's all.
Yeah, so up until this meeting, I have the recordings. Some of them are on the town website. Not all of them have been posted because I probably didn't send them to Seth to do that. But we do have recordings, I think, of all of them.
Thank
So
you.
that's good. Yeah, they are really helpful.
Yeah.
I think that's something functionally we can do. We'll get popcorn, and when we get a red line together, is go back and watch some of them. Okay, so Article 4, which is elected officials. And the first section that we had for discussion was 4.2c, which is town administrator. Let me get there, hang on. 4.2c, so under the powers and duties of the town administrator, the comment was what constitutes an agency? There's no definition to discuss. Should there be clarification definition in the charter? So if we look at that, section C says, the town administrator shall exercise a general supervision over all town agencies for which the town administrator is the appointing or employing authority. And the notes at the original conversation was, do we need to apply or define that? And then is there anything in the contract that would define it? Do we want it in the charter or do we want it in the TA's contract?
Do you think the definition of agency just is appointing or employing authority? If he's the one who appoints and creates that agency, isn't that doesn't that just say what it is or not?
I think that was the original question, was, I think we all kind of said, it's kind of confusing.
It's confusing, but it also implies to me that any employee that he would appoint, he would have agency over. He would.
So is that true?
Well, he could fire them or hire, if he's hiring them.
Yeah, the town administrator is on employers, the hiring authority. It does specify that somewhere.
I don't think the word's being used in that context in this paragraph.
But it would seem like he would have control over that.
I agree. It's referring to town agencies.
Yeah, I know.
As though they're town departments is kind of,
Correct.
I interpret that. I'm not sure why the word agencies is used there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is semantic, but it can be improved. You want to talk about it?
I don't know, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, I don't know if this helps or doesn't, but in the law dictionary, it says agency includes every relation in which one person acts for or represents another by latter's authority. So the authority would be coming from the superior. But are we thinking that it's not that type of relationship, that it's more on
Yeah,
broader than that?
I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think that definition more ties to a principal agency problem and just the concept of agency law. I think here we're just talking about agencies in terms of like DPW.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what another good one would be, but as an example.
I think there are also individual employees that he hires that are not part of any specific department.
But is that not process of hiring and firing town employees, is that not governed by bylaw? There's got to be some kind of process, right? You can't just
That personnel bylaw, right?
Yeah, exactly. You can't just terminate it like because I don't like you for whatever reason or whatever the issue is.
Right. Where is it?
So does Jim have general supervision over like the fire department and the police department and those as well? Is that in here?
Yeah, so A is TA or their designee was what we were going to add, shall be the personnel director of the town responsible for all personnel matters. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, so he technically everything except the school department, which is governed by the school committee and the superintendent. All other town employees technically report to Jim Boudreau.
Not the clerk, right?
Not, yeah, we had this conversation.
Yeah.
She's
Clerk's
elected.
elected.
She's elected, not appointed by him.
Correct. But her salary, she has no say over her salary or her staff, his or her staff.
Right. Right. He's the appointing authority for the town clerk's staff, right? Yes.
But not the clerk herself or himself.
Correct. Same with this, with the assessors, that's a committee. He does hire the town assessor.
Right.
And he hires, well, no, the school committee hires the superintendent. Otherwise, everybody's through him. So, all right, so in this one, do we just not like the word agencies? Is that where I mean, functionally, it's in line with what his duties and responsibilities are, as a hiring authority and supervising manager.
Yeah, so what about town departments and employees?
Yeah.
And then some throwaway of unless specified elsewhere within the charter.
How about just all employees?
Shall have supervision
It's the town
of
administrators.
all town employees for which the town administrator is the appointing or employing authority, unless otherwise specific, what you said.
Yeah, something along the lines of unless specified elsewhere within the charter.
And we could substitute the wording that is in D.
D is the administrator shall fix the compensation of all appointed by within the limits.
Town of officers and employees. There must be a reason that they chose the word agencies instead of using town officers and employees, but I don't know, can't imagine what it would be.
Well, I think it has, I mean, that's a really good point, because so he can, under his authority, enter into a contract under $25,000 without asking somebody. So let's say the Board of Health needs needs extra help, and he just goes out and hires a temporary employee, does a contract with, Boards of Health RS, and they bring in somebody for a month. I guess that would come under employee, but that would be a contract, you know what I'm saying? Or, I don't know, I'm trying to think. It may be more than just quote unquote employees.
They have general supervision. I'm not quite sure how general supervision is different from supervision, but I'm just, I'm not sure what this section's meant to convey.
Yeah, why wouldn't it just say general town administrator shall supervise?
Yeah, I've just
All town departments and employees that he appoints or employs or is the authority for it. Yeah.
It might have something to do with it, because I think he has some appointments to some committees, maybe volunteer committees, doesn't he? Maybe
Yes.
that's something to do with it, right? So they're not. I mean, they are employees, sort of, but they're not paid. I don't know. Might have something to do with that, right?
How about employees or would agencies be the right word, Michael? I mean, or is that just a different context altogether?
I would say, Marla, I agree with you. They probably maybe picked it for a reason when it was done, but whatever that reason was is lost, and it's unclear to all of us now. So that would be my push to change it.
Okay. So town administrator shall supervise all town employees, and I think there should be an and though, but what's the and?
Departments, committees, commissions.
How about employees or appointees? Does that work? Okay. Which is the administrator and the appointing authority unless otherwise specified within the charter. How's that strike?
Sounds good.
We'll obviously have a chance to look at these.
Karen, before we go on,
Mhm.
I have notes taken under section 4.1.
Okay.
I have in the 4th line, that sentence, the town administrator need not be a resident of the town. We had crossed that out.
Yep. Yeah, I have that note.
Okay. And then another note that I had was that we need to add something about performance review.
Yes.
And then my third thing on that paragraph is I circled consolidated personnel bylaw. And the question is, what is this?
Right. So my note on that was says, does the town have these or Mass General Law? That was it.
That's one of our open research points.
Okay, good. I
we
just
get-
didn't want to let that go by since I had written it down.
for-
Yeah, so I guess, Karen, are we going to use the interns for that research? Or
I don't think that we have, I don't think that this is their wheelhouse. I don't think we have anybody that is up that level. I mean, they're
Okay.
college kids who are majoring in poli-sci, you know, so they're interested in government, but they may not, I don't know if he'll be able to do that kind of research. I don't know.
we could let them run with it and then review it. And if
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm happy to
we
keep this
feel
out.
it meets things, great. If not, one of us could look into it further, or farm it out to Cynthia.
Yeah, let's say the legal fees and let them take a pass at it. Okay. Marla, we are going on number 3 of our review is we're going to get to the performance review. That's going to be a bigger topic.
Mhm. No,
Okay.
I
So,
just, I had it there. I didn't want it to go by.
no, that's good. Yeah. So we all agreed to remove that sentence. We'll have the intern look at the consolidated personnel bylaw. God help me if I lose my scribbles on all this. And we've revised C, 4.2C. Okay. Which would bring us to 4.2L, which is the responsibility for bidding of contracts. And we were to discuss, should be there a threshold or should it be in the bylaws? So in that context, I remember we talked about, we weren't real comfortable with huge contracts being bid out without, wait, let's see, where were we? So it says right now, the town administrator shall be responsible for negotiating bidding of all contracts involving any matter within the responsibility of the contractor. And then I bracketed the next sentence, all the contracts exceeding a fixed amount shall be subject to final approval. And the way it is right now is the Board of Selectmen just pick that number. And we reduced it, I believe, from 50 to 25 when Jim came on board because we didn't know if he was a wild dog or not. So, and the comments on my margins were, should this bylaw or charter or both good control here? So we left it open for revisit. What do you guys think?
Speaking as a CFO, it should be documented and in the bylaw.
In the bylaw, not the charter.
It doesn't necessarily have to be in the charter, but you should reference that it has to be documented somewhere. And I think you should allow it, and you put in the charter, right, it becomes, there's no flexibility, at least in my understanding is the bylaw is easier to modify. So if there was,
You have to go to town meeting to.
I understand, but it's still easier to modify than the charter. So if there was a reason to change it, you could come back and revisit it.
So let me just do a hypothetical, because I know some of our town meeting members. So right now it is the select board, just as we did, we say, oh, we got a new TA coming in. Let's lower it until we're comfortable that, we're comfortable with his threat, that he's making the right choices. If we had gone to town meeting and said, we're going to reduce this to 25. I know, and some guy, from the back row is going to say, town administrators shouldn't be signing any contracts over $500 without approval. Which, fine, but it just bogs down business. Lincoln, what do you think?
It wouldn't get approved, and everybody knows that's I'll pick my adjective here carefully. It's not effective, right? And yeah, it would create an unneeded burden on the town to be able to execute any business at all. So that's not reasonable, and no business runs like that at all either, right? I mean, you have to apply some discretion, but the discretion shouldn't be based on, do we trust the town administrator? It's irrelevant, to be honest.
That is true.
Could always fire him too.
Right.
How was it changed? How was it changed last time when you said that when he came on board, it was reduced from 50 to 25?
It was it was a board vote.
Okay, a board vote. And I would agree that it sounds to me like it might be better on the bylaws.
Okay. Yeah, so the charter now gives the authority to the Board of Selectmen to set that threshold.
Mhm.
And what you guys are saying is you think that it should be a threshold set by bylaw.
I like the town administrator. I mean, I like the Board of Selectmen, the select board in control of that.
Yeah, and I kind of tend to disagree in the other. I mean, agree with Marlon. Maybe even would go further in that. Doesn't it? I mean, how much time you guys on the Board of Selectmen spend a lot of time going over contracts, I believe, right? At least you used to. I'm sorry, I haven't watched a meeting really recently. I apologize, but I know it seemed like it used to spend a lot of time reviewing contracts before approval, and then I'm sure they were not approved sometimes, but for the most part, they were approved, right? And that was one of the factors making the Board of Selectmen meetings particularly long.
Right.
And so I guess I would sort of swing completely the opposite and say that, do you even want approval over contracts over a particularly high level? Because it's an administrative function, not a policy function, I think.
Well, I would argue, I think that even if it's, I mean, we don't spend a lot of time debating, by the time
Yeah.
the union contracts to us, we have nothing to add, right?
Yeah.
But the transparency of signing something that important, I think belongs on an agenda, just so we can say, okay, our town administrator and appropriate personnel have spent the last year negotiating our new ex-union contract. It's before the board now. Here are the highlights, which is what we just do. And I mean, I can't remember something of that.
Oh, so I was thinking, but isn't this? I guess I wasn't thinking that this would be applying that the board would still have to apply, approve all union contracts, but that we're talking about supply and service contracts.
Just said contracts on here.
Yeah, true.
Updating contracts. So let's take a non-union. So I still think that still applies to, we just, last meeting, we were presented with the MAPC contract, group contract for what we're going to pay for potholes.
Right.
And it's just, I mean, the conversation was a minute long, and all we basically wanted to do is inform the public. There's this process, we get best bidding, this is the number, we do this annually, and we're now approving it.
Right.
I think there's great value in just reporting that, even if that doesn't take long.
Right.
So, but is there value in a threshold as low as 25,000? I mean, what's our annual town budget? Like 9 million, right?
80 million.
Or right.
All right, yeah, but take education out of that 80 million.
Yeah, so then we're 30% of that, whatever that is, 40 million. We're like at 40 and something, right?
Right.
So,
I mean, I think
Three times 8 wouldn't be 40. I'm just saying.
Right, I know.
if anything, I think I definitely don't think you want it in the bylaws, because I think you're going to have exactly what Karen spoke about, and that would just make your Board of Selectmen meetings 6 hours long.
No, I think
Yeah.
Andrew's right, I think it would get defeated on town meeting. We would have the conversation, and that's fine. And then we'd all stand up and go, well, yeah, practically speaking, that doesn't make sense. And I think for the most part, town meeting actually is pretty.
Well, the entire select board could just, if someone says that, oh, we all resign on principle. Hey, good luck. Let us know how it turns out.
Bye-bye. I fantasize about that sometimes. Okay, so let's get to that. So we are split as far as whether or not it should, forget the number at the moment. We're split on whether or not it should be a select board authority or a bylaw authority. Is that accurate? Okay. Does the threshold change your opinion on that at all? Like I don't know.
In what dimension?
Pardon me?
In what dimension?
Well, if we said, oh, the board doesn't need to look at anything under, to your point, it's a bazillion-dollar budget. We don't need to look at anything under 100 grand.
I would object.
Yeah.
It gives too much. You have to have a check, right? What's the check?
Okay, so, but all right, so let's go the opposite. Let's say we keep it at 25. Is that something that everything above 25, whatever the low number is, the board should, I don't know, it's two different questions, I guess. One is, does the board have the complete authority to this, or does the town setting the threshold, or should the town set the threshold?
Well, I guess let me ask this question. When the select board does set the threshold, how is it documented? How's it published? How's it
Minutes.
made transparent?
It's minutes in the Board of Selectmen meeting, select board meeting.
So it's just in the minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's easily potentially missed.
Oh, yeah, because surprisingly, not everyone wants to sit through a 4-hour meeting.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think if you guys set it at a particular level, I guarantee you the town administrator knows what that is. I mean, we've been missed by all of us, but not by her.
Oh, right, 100%.
You know?
Right. Well, yeah. The key thing you're watching out is that someone, let's say, builds an elephant at 24,000 a pop.
Right.
We'd know about it.
Yeah. Eventually.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
So I have to say, I prefer the flexibility of the Board of Selectmen, just because, yes, you can fire a TA, but it's hard to. It's a process.
It is now, but we could talk about making it easier. So is there value in setting an absolute boundary in the bylaws, 250,000, 150,000, something where absolutely never should a TA be entering into this without the select board or town meeting, or as otherwise specified by the select board, right? They could always come in and lower it if they want to, but you're setting some sort of outer bounds.
Yeah, cap.
Right.
Cap what their authority is.
Right.
By
And if there was extreme comfort with a TA in the select board and they felt that you didn't need to rein anyone in, cool, great. We've got at least a check in there. But can always, make it stricter.
Okay, so right now we have complete authority to set the number at whatever by the select board. Michael is saying put a higher cap in the bylaws that should that cap be changed, let's say we picked $75,000 and then 10 years from now we're like, oh my gosh, you can't buy a toothpick for $75,000. You can go back to town meeting and raise it. But meanwhile, the select board could set any threshold below that amount.
I think the select board should just set it, but that's my opinion.
I agree. I think it gives more flexibility to the process of running government.
Raymond, do you have an opinion on this? Because we're all split.
Well, I first said bylaws, but now listening to the discussion, and I'm the sort of the newbie, and if this gives flexibility, as Marla said, as far as government's concerned, and you're not overly concerned about, it's usually the person, and I've had a couple personal business experiences on this, it's usually the person that you have a lot of faith in and a lot of trust in that burns you. But it sounds like the select board, right, is going to be the watchdog on the town administrator. And yeah, I'm okay with this select board. But,
yeah, and Andrew, as you pointed out
I don't want
before,
to fall asleep at the switch either.
Well, I was going to say,
we're elected to operate in that.
I could be swayed to the other side knowing that the select board basically takes responsibility for that. And if that's what they want to do and they set it too high and it gets abused, it's on them.
It is on us. Yeah. No, I was thinking, because we've argued that on other points. It's like, that's what we are charged with, is overseeing these sorts of things. All right. Well, so I would, if we were having a vote, I would move that we leave the language as written. other than change Board of Selectmen to Select Board. Is there a dissent to that? Because we're not going to go through, we don't have to go by majority because we're a
No,
cooperative.
I'm not dug in on the bylaw thing. I could easily move off of that one. It's not a hard, yeah, fine, leave it with the select board.
Agreed.
Okay, consensus?
Yes.
All right, the dog said yes. Okay, so I'm going to, okay, I'm just gonna write a note, retain charter language. Okay, great. Then now the next is the small topic, and we have a whole 15 minutes on this before we lose Lincoln, is section 420, which does not exist, but is to discuss how we're going to do performance review by select board for the TA. Does this belong in the TA or the select board charter? So the consensus was we all feel like we need to have a formalized language that says this is how you review. So the first question is, does it belong under duties and responsibilities of the town administrator, Article 4, or under, where's select board? Section 3, which is 3.2, which is the select board duties and powers. Thoughts? I mean, I would say you could do it both. As maybe you add under an O that says the town administrator shall be subject to an annual review by the select board as defined in section 3 or something.
Yep.
And then we go and figure out what it is and put it in section 3. Does that make sense structurally?
I think so.
Or you could leave it there and say as defined herein and then put it right there. Okay.
It's fine.
That might be something that Cindy figures out later.
Yeah, I think your gut reaction is right because it's something that the select board has to do. It's really a select board responsibility,
Okay.
but it relates to the TA.
And do we think an annual, is that an appropriate time for, I think we all agree that like any other
Yes.
job.
What's the typical contract term? 3 years?
Yeah. 3 to 5 years, depending on the community. I wouldn't, typically it's 3 with 2 options, right, Lincoln, normally?
Yeah, 3 or 5. That's a whole other thing about how
Right.
it's technically not supposed to be more than 3, but a lot of communities do it anyway.
Yeah, it's sort of an automatic
It's
roll.
a whole other thing.
Yeah, ours is kind of,
Yeah.
there's danger, that's a whole different contract conversation, but ours was originally, the first contract with Jim was 3 years with 2 renewals.
Right.
But they're very heavily weighted in favor of the TA rolling on. But that's a whole nother conversation, not outside of the charter. Okay, so TA would be subject to annual review by select board as defined in 3.2. Yeah, we can propose this, and if there's a problem with the structure, that's what council's for, I would think. Okay, so then if we go back to 3.2, it would then be probably added to general powers. Or to be under C, which is the appointments. Didn't we have another example of that in a different charter?
Yeah, I thought so too. I was just looking at Norwell, but I didn't see it in there.
I think it came,
So it mustn't have been Norwell. Maybe it was,
no, it came from Swampscott, I believe.
oh, okay.
They had a really long one though, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Swampscott had very long language around it.
So
I'm
I would
happy
have
to
it
provide
be-
that if you want it, Karen.
yeah, I would have it be its own subsection in 3.2.
Okay.
Hiring or performance of TA, whatever, and then lay it out in there similar to, it was Swampscott, right? That had the pretty
Yes.
lengthy one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is the one we were all talking about and kind of throwing around, right?
Right, and it was, as I recall, it was like almost uber ridiculous, like over. Oh, no, wait, that was in how do you remove somebody, it was too much. Okay, so we want to add a new section to 3.2 regarding review, and then we're going to reference Swampscott language. I know, Andres, I think you sent that at one point. Can you throw that, did we throw it into the Google document by any chance? Or maybe if you could like copy and paste it into the Google Doc so it lives in one place?
Yeah, I'll try to do that this evening. Yeah.
Okay, and then once we have the red line, we can see if it makes sense. Add to Google. Okay. Well, that was easier than we thought. Okay. Yeah, so I think we were all in concert that, yeah, you ought to have it formalized in the charter that this is an annual thing. Okay, I agree. Then B is bylaws include language that limits TA to any activity not under the jurisdiction of another elected body. And we were a little confused by that and wondered if it belonged in the charter. Who wants to remind us of what that was about? I have so many scribbles. Oh, I said check with I was supposed to check with a TA about this. That was me. Clarify what is town school. Oh, we did have that conversation. Okay. Town. Oh, here we are back at the town. Nicole, back at who's responsible for school properties and stuff. Sorry, that's what
Oh, that's one of our favorite topics.
No. Is that what we're talking? No, because we're talking about 4.2.0, which we're adding. I'm sorry, where is this?
Well, we have a different interpretation of favorite and unfavorite. But yeah.
The bylaw. Oh, the bylaw. That's why I'm confused. It's not in the charter.
Right.
Okay, sorry. Let me find the bylaws. Anybody have them here? Oh, here they are. All right. TA. Bylaw. Page 17 of the old one. We still haven't got the new one. Okay. Okay, yeah, okay, so in the bylaws, it says under section 2320, powers and duties shall include, in addition to set forth in this chapter, any reasonable assignments by the select board or town meeting that does not conflict with the powers and duties of other town officials or members of the body or the charter. And then a question to us is, does that belong in the bylaws or should it be elevated to the charter? Any reasonable assignment by the select board or town meeting that does not conflict with the powers and duties of other town officials or multiple member bodies or the charter. So you're taking out or the charter. If we put it in the charter, it basically would say town administrator, even if the board says, we want you to, decide the curriculum in the schools. You can't, because that's the school committee's responsibility. We want you to change zoning. He can't. The planning board has to do that. So
I don't think it should.
Sorry?
I don't think it should be in the charter.
Because
It's
it's self-evident?
Yeah, I guess, right. Yeah, I guess. I mean, with my, maybe this has changed over the last few months when I've been a town administrator, but I feel like there's a reasonableness factor. And, I mean, I don't know. I just think it's too restrictive in the, in the charter.
Any other thoughts on the subject?
Yeah, I mean, I'm swayed by that. I don't know that there's harm in clarifying that the TA can encroach on other areas.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if it's in a bylaw too, the TA is going to be subject to bylaws as well. So,
So to be clear, I think it's, if we just want to put in the charter the stuff about encroachment on others, I'm more thinking of like the language that says like the Board of Selectmen can ask the TA to do anything and everything that's reasonable. Well, who defines what's reasonable, right? Right, exactly. But I mean, as far as like the encroachment piece, yeah, I mean, it should be in the bylaws. Yeah, I
Picking
take
up
that.
dry cleaning might not be appropriate.
Well, probably nothing that I don't know. I've been asked to do ridiculous things so far. So
Already? What have you been on the job, a month?
3.
Oh my
Anyway,
goodness.
but as far as the encroachment thing goes, yeah, I'm on board, definitely. Let's put that in the charter. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, section E of powers and duties for the TA says the TA shall see that provisions of laws, charter, bylaws, and votes at town meeting and the select board that require enforcement by the TA or officer subject to his or her supervision shall be faithfully carried out. I mean, that's kind of another way of saying that in a way.
yeah, the only thing it doesn't say is you can't do the things that are reserved for other bodies.
Well, I would think that that's where it belongs, right? In section E, if you were going to do something, and it would say TA shall not
Do things he or she shouldn't otherwise do.
conflict with the same language as this bylaw, conflict
Yeah.
with the powers and duties of other officers, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I actually don't think I think that's clarifying. And it doesn't, I mean, it's just an affirmative statement about the limits of their power. I don't know why, I mean, I don't care where it lives, but I can't think of a reason why it shouldn't be in the charter. Does anyone else?
No.
I mean, it's not something you're gonna rescind, right?
No.
And maybe it needs to be said for protection for the town of an overzealous TA.
Does that ever happen, Marla? I'm okay with that. Anyone object to adding to E language from the bylaw concerning this? Okay.
I would make it its own so it doesn't get too cumbersome.
You think so?
Well, it's just E says, I mean, semantics, but E is the town administrator will do something, and this is the town administrator won't do something.
Okay, so add,
But I mean, I don't feel strongly one way or the other.
yeah, I mean, that's just drafting.
That makes sense, though. I like that rationale.
Bylaw, hold on, I gotta write it down. Okay. All right, are we all in agreement? Are there any objections to that? Okay,
Agree.
sorry? Agreed, oh, agreed.
Agree.
I thought you said read, and I was like, what are we reading now?
Agree.
Okay, so we are up to section 4. We have 2 more sections in this. I know that in 3 minutes, Lincoln leaves.
I'm actually, I don't have to go until like 6:50 for what it's worth.
Okay, let's see how far we get then. Emergency 42P is emergency plan. Should a requirement be included in the charter? Who's responsible? Oh, okay. So remember we talked that we don't have a P at the moment, but we were talking about, I think Andres, you had a really good point when we talked about this, is that should we include in the charter that there should be something about, you know, what's the run of show when there's an emergency? Whose authority, who signs off on it, who comes up with a plan, that sort of thing. Did we have any language anywhere else? I don't recall that we did. No. Okay, and I don't think there was anything in the bylaw, right? I don't believe there was. So if we were to do this, we have to create it, right? Does everyone remember that conversation and what we're talking about? Yep, everyone's nodding, okay. So, question, charter versus bylaw. We agree somewhere there should be a who's responsible and what they're responsible for in the event of an emergency in the town. Oh, and my computer just told me it's about to die. Does that something that should be in, you're gonna walk with me to go get my charger, in the charter or in a bylaw? As far as flexibility goes.
I thought it was a more general, because I think Karen, you brought up, we don't want to include the specifics of the plan.
Right.
Because there's a worry that, I don't know, it could be misused by bad actors. But more that a plan needed to be, there was a requirement that there was a plan and a party was responsible for creating it and reviewing it. Whether that be the select board, the TA, the fire chief,
Are we talking?
all of them.
Right, are we talking only about natural disasters? Because some things are, yeah, I would argue, are strictly in the province of the public safety officers. Like just an active shooting plan.
Sure.
Should the select board be approving that?
But is that a town-wide emergency? Not necessarily.
Can be, it has been.
Theoretically, yes.
Right, but it also impacts the schools. It gets very thorny.
Yeah, absolutely does.
We're in the middle of a problem right now, so who's really in charge?
Right, we have a public health emergency right now.
That's the whole town.
Right. Normally, and then, you know, our normal emergencies are floods and storms and stuff. I know, it's a tricky one.
Aren't all current departments, I would imagine they all have some sort of emergency planning for an emergency that would come under their purview.
Yes.
Right? Like the Board of Health had some idea of what they were going to do for this in broad strokes.
Right.
The
and
school
how to set.
100% has a policy for an active shooter drill, fire drill,
Mhm.
or fire, active shooter, not even just drills, those things. And same with the public safety building. I mean, they have protocols for
Everything.
emergencies.
Right. Shelters, we have how to set. But
So-
his point was
Yeah, it's kind of there.
they're there, but I think Andreas was arguing, is that something that a buck should stop somewhere besides the department chair?
Yeah, I mean, let's put it this way. The plan's there. Let's say the plan's terrible, and the execution of the plan's terrible. And oh well, you end up afterwards, and everybody goes like this.
Well, they won't. I mean, 'cause-
You say
Yeah.
that, but
yeah, but right now, yeah, I suppose. I mean, right now, it's like public safety knows how to set up a shelter.
I think it's the basic thing of the Board of Selectmen sets the policy and the town administrator executes. And so so yeah, I do think that, for example, I mean, I don't know if we have a civil unrest response plan I think it probably exists. You probably looked at it in executive session. It
No,
definitely
the police department is responsible for that. It's public safety.
yeah, so I think that's
The way
dead
it is
wrong.
now, it doesn't elevate to us.
I think that's dead wrong. Because I think absolutely for example, that plan should be, the policy of the response should absolutely be reviewed by the elected leadership of the town. And the execution is from the administrator to the police chief. But I think that's just fundamental. I mean,
if the police chief he doesn't have they don't have sole discretion to declare the emergency, and then they can execute the plan. It can't work.
correct.
Now, so that might be the linchpin, because you could write a zillion emergency plans, right? I mean, we just
Yeah, I mean,
like
So
10.
you guys don't, even in an executive session, so is there a policy in response to civil unrest right now?
I am certain that the police department has walked through all of those things, but no, there's no I mean, what do you mean? So we would,
So,
in the event of civil unrest,
yeah,
the board authorizes the police department to use certain restraints. I'm just making stuff up.
I would want each department to have their own emergency plan, but I think that the select board should approve those plans,
agreed.
because we
So-
might not agree with the steps that they plan to take.
All right, so here's the rub, okay? The rub is there are often security issues around those plans. We don't want bad actors to know what our plan is in an active shooter situation, because they can then plan around it. If the board approves that plan, it becomes public.
Well, you can talk about it in an executive session, and you can redact that plan specifically according to the open meeting law and the public records law for exactly that reason.
You
So
can't.
there has to be some sort of review, and you can definitely keep it private. I know that we just did that, literally just did that here, where we talked about the active shooter response, but the Board of Selectmen approved the policy because, and by the same token, the civil unrest thing, what constitutes civil unrest and what is our response, and when you use ballistic shields and when you not use ballistic shields. We absolutely talked about it in executive session, and they approved it. And if anybody asked for that plan, it would certainly be heavily redacted, but at least the elected officials reviewed it and approved it.
And under what authority did they do that? Was that something that's in the charter, or just that was good?
No, we don't even have a charter. but it just be, and the general policy making authority of the board.
So
I think, but yeah, I do think, I definitely think it should be in the charter. Emergency response plans should be drafted by the department and approved by the Board of Selectmen, period.
All right, so if I look at duties and responsibilities for the select board 3.2.
is there any concern that that's going to then make emergency response plans political? Right? Aaron, no offense, but you don't have a medical background. You don't, I wouldn't trust your plan for a pandemic over,
The Board of Health.
medical professionals and the Board of Health, things like that. Nor would I.
No, but you can't just defer to authority either. I disagree with that.
So,
The authorities proved itself to be political as well. So
Yeah, but the select board's authority too.
I understand, but ultimately there are political decisions and ramifications to these things, right? So yes, it's inherently political. It has to be.
so under B in section 3.2 now, it says the select board shall serve as the chief policy-making agency. We're talking about policy, right?
Mhm.
Of the town. It shall exercise general supervisory powers through the adoption of political directives and guidelines. It may establish to implement and to be implemented by officers and employees appointed by so that would totally come under that.
Mhm.
It just doesn't specifically say that. Such policies shall include, but shall not be limited to the following: policies by which legislative directives and the intent of town meeting may be implemented, policies, general oversight and evaluation of government. And then we were going to replace with Long Meadow language, policies for the coordination and development of long and short-term planning, which I think it was more robust. I don't have it in front of me. And policies about the budget. Why wouldn't we add in there?
Yeah, one line, one
line
phrase.
that says
One
policies
phrase takes
related
care
to-
of it.
Yeah, policies related to the managed emergency, what's the right language?
Emergency management plans.
Yeah, emergency
So,
response
but
management.
just to be clear, I mean, like right now, so like the Board of Selectmen hasn't seen an active shooting response plan or a civil unrest response plan or a storm response plan. You haven't seen them?
Personally, I've seen the storm one because I've been in office since we've had a storm problem.
Right.
So, I walk into the emergency response center and
Mhm.
it's all laid out. They know exactly
Right.
what they're doing.
But
There's,
the reason,
there's binders. I've seen the binders.
Yeah.
but the
Do we have
reason
to
that,
approve them? No.
the reason that you saw it was reactive. We're
Yeah.
asking you to be proactive.
Yep.
So one more wrinkle. Nicole, has the school committee seen these plans as they relate to the school? Because the select board should not be signing off on any policy as it relates to the school.
Yeah, no, we're kind of, I was actually thinking about that answer as we were discussing this for town side, but no, I think we're in the same kind of boat really as select board in this. We don't approve any of those kinds of plans or anything.
Right. I think it's really
Like an active shooter drill, I mean, or anything like that, fire drills.
God forbid it goes wrong. They're going to say, you were the authority, right? I
Right.
think that's the whole point, right?
Mhm.
You're supposed to be in charge of these things.
Right.
That's the difference between like a seeing and adopting the recommended policy versus executing it, right? Because
Exactly.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, not that I expect this in Scituate, but this is how there's police departments with like, Bearcats and using ballistic shields on like
Yeah.
peaceful protesters, right?
Yeah, problem.
Why it's happening. I'm not saying that's going to happen in Scituate, but
No, but our job is to draft a document that protects the town from, to use a more benign example is what happens, we had a horrible storm and nobody knew how to provide shelter.
right.
We do, but it's not a policy that the board's ever said, okay, that's a great plan.
Yeah, but I do agree with that. I mean, there's something to be said about having, we're not going to execute, we're not the professionals in execution of the plans, but it is as an elected person, it's our responsibility to kind of at least have knowledge of that happening and not be as in the dark, I think, as we are on some of these things. And then, because it does come back if God forbid something does go wrong, it usually goes straight to us too. And then we can't give any.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about all of our recent school issues and things going on. Like we're not privy to certain personal documents and things that circulate when there's anything going on in school. It's just not under our purview, but yet, we do have accountability to families and, people in the town on it.
But on that, does the school board sign off on the discipline? No, like the No.
Technically, the school handbooks are all under these. We kind of do, but not technically, no. I mean, it comes through us, and we do in public meeting kind of review that stuff, but it's more like we have a policy that we should have these handbooks, and the principals create and school personnel, they all create what the language is and the policies are around that.
Right, which I'm sure all of the professionals would strenuously argue is the way to do it.
Mhm.
To Michael's point, I'm not a medical doctor, right? So I should rely on my experts to come up with the plan,
Right.
but we should charge them. It's circular. It's a circular thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not assessing the plan for you don't assess the plan for quality, because
Right.
you don't have any expertise to assess the plan for quality. You're just saying, yeah, hey, I have an active imagination. You don't have a plan for X. How come you don't have a plan for X? By the way, I saw your plan. You don't have this. Why not? Right? And whatever it is, or hey, it seems a little light here. Have you thought about the implications over here? Just review and consent. You're not saying it's good, bad, or indifferent. You're saying, hey, I've seen the plan. I know we have a plan in case of this contingency.
I also think that if we put this in the charter, it would give everyone an opportunity to have the conversation. And sometimes having that conversation, issues come up that need to be discussed in executive session. I'm not saying in public.
Right.
It just, it gives the select board an excuse to make sure that everything is being discussed, and the school committee too.
Right. It's just to know that it's happening and say,
Yes.
okay, we're not the experts here, but we have these things, and we trust that these people who are the experts are executing and working on and constantly, keeping up with the latest, whatever they need information to put into said document, like that's their area of expertise, but we know they have those things. And,
I think it's important to have the conversation.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
Just talking about it, it's the whole silo problem. So, when you go to a cardiologist, they just tell you what's wrong with your heart. They don't tell you about you should eat all the crap you eat. They tell you how to fix the heart. They don't say, well, if you didn't eat so much cheese, you wouldn't be here. And I mean, that's a very simplistic, but it's often that we will, and usually not at something this level, but we'll have a board of committee come up with a recommendation, and we're like, well, yeah, but that doesn't work because of X, Y, and Z. So I do like that sort of, I immediately think about the whole DEI initiatives. It's like, it's not the job of the X department to look at everything through the lens of other priorities. So that might be a way to do it. If we added to the section as a policy and emergency response plan, simply that language without defining it, would that be strong enough?
Yeah, it gives you permission.
Okay. And it states that needs to be done. Okay.
When you could even say, the board must review and approve them once a year, or once every 2 years, or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it should. I know it's making more work for you guys, but honestly, to come back to something else, when we're talking about contracts, I'd much rather the elected select board and school committee were spending time reviewing these policies and making sure they agreed with them than particular contracts, honestly.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a fundamental policy thing versus an administrative thing. And I think I know it's making work for you, but almost it should be reviewed every year or every 2 years or whatever, but no longer than that.
I think every year is a little.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Maybe every 2 years. I don't know.
Say
Every 3 years.
at
Whatever.
reason. I mean, not to be legalistic, but just say at reasonable intervals or something. It leaves it.
Find that though.
Of not less than 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years. 3 years. I mean, that at least means that every elected member of the board, if they fill out
Or not more.
a full term, will at least see it.
Once.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's good.
Okay. not less than every 3 years. Not
Not more than.
more
Yeah.
than.
Not
Said the
more
wrong way, but
Yeah. Okay. 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 All right, we are up to hiring a removal of TA, and I would argue that we need to postpone that to our next meeting, just because we all have to turn into pumpkins. And we know that's gonna be meaty. So right now, we're scheduled to reconvene on June 14th, my daughter's birthday. Oh, and we're still on track because that was to continue Articles 3 and 4. Look at that. I love when we stay on schedule. Unlike my diet where I'm not quite on that track yet.
Are we 5:30 again on June 14th?
I don't think we picked a time. What do you guys, I would prefer a little on the earlier side only because I do have a birthday party to attend.
well, agreed. Will we be meeting remotely, or
That's a very good question.
will we be meeting in person? I mean, I'm just thinking ahead of, I think restrictions are about to be lifted, right?
Yep. Well, June they will be for sure.
Yeah.
But Karen will want to dash out for her party, so remote might be more efficient.
Yeah, I'm with you. Remote is probably easier for everyone.
My interpretation of it,
And
is
then, go ahead.
we can meet remotely until June 15th unless that legislature acts and changes the open meeting law. Would you agree with that, Karen? Anybody else?
That's the projected emergency lift. So we should do one more remote. I like, and also it makes the recording easy.
Right.
So, in the intro, so we're gonna, so what time on the 14th, 5:30 work or everyone? Okay.
Yeah.
And how did this work going through Seth? That when I did that, is that okay with everyone?
Well,
Is
Seth
that
and
Yeah,
Gary is
that
still,
was easy.
That's fine.
he's multitasking. Yeah. No one Zoomed us and, okay. In the meantime, hopefully we will be assigned an intern, and I'm happy to begin their work on this and hope that they don't run screaming in the opposite direction. And then Nicole, you're charged with getting the April oh, well, let's see what, maybe let me see if we can onboard. Jim said he's gonna finish the interviews and stuff by the end of this week. So if I get somebody on, that might be just a good way to onboard them anyway, is to have them watch those 3 minutes, do the minutes. It's actually a good way to get them on board so they know what the heck we're talking about.
Okay, just keep me posted either way.
I know you want to so bad to do that. Okay, cool. All right, in that case, so we will begin with section 4.2, that we will actually be able to go on to, we're ahead. We'll be able to move on a little to 5 as well, I would think.
All right, should I include Article 5 in the agenda?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay, and everyone else will take a gander at the comments from council that Mike provided, just so they're familiar with them. And if there is no other business before the committee, we can have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded by everyone. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It was a roll call. Everyone agreed. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night, and we will see you soon.